High-rise buildings and huge structures are marvelous to look at. However, time takes a toll on everything. It includes those brilliant works of engineering too. So they too have to be destroyed and the construction of new ones should be undertaken. But at times, things don't always go as planned. Here are the top 5 building emotions that went horribly wrong. Number 5. The Theforth Towers. The 2 towers, Churchill and Montgomery, were part of the Theforth Towers. They were built in the 1960s, and because of how ancient they are, these towers are ugly and they're dusty. So the owners decided to bring them down. But just as the names of these towers would suggest, Churchill and Montgomery weren't ready to go down without a fight. These towers were so stubborn that they were not reduced to a bunch of rubble even after 2 attempts at detonation. The crowds gathered to witness this massive fall, and the residents were stumped and angry. The frustrated former residents of the flats were forced to spend the night in a hotel after explosives failed to do their job. The failure left some neighbors furious as they were unable to return to their homes after more than 10 hours of waiting. The much-anticipated demolition led to the closure of several roads, and dozens of neighbors were forced to live outside of a special exclusion zone until the work had been completed. But it all turned out to be a big waste. After the first demolition attempt, the demolition workers attempted to bring it down a second time, but it was unsuccessful. The contractors were at their wits' end about this. Then a high-specialist, high-reach excavator crane, known as the Glasgow Pulverizer, was brought in. It was able to demolish the tower in phases, taking down 3 floors each day. The whole process of demolition and cleaning up the debris took a whopping 10 days. The owners of this massive edifice hired a private firm to look into why the building didn't come down after multiple detonation attempts, and the reason for its unnatural strength. Turns out, the concrete-filled steel pipes were the reason. Studies done on the building revealed that 4-inch long steel pipes, 15 to 20 millimeters thick, were the reason that the tower blocks failed to come down on time as planned. Before the demolition, contractors drilled into concrete columns at the base of the towers, but they didn't find the hidden pipes. These supposedly hidden pipes were buried 8 inches inside the columns. When the ground floor explosions occurred, it appears that the building simply sat down on these columns and stayed there. The main cause of these failed explosions and the loss of so much time and money was the lack of information which had been made available to the principal contractor and his specialists. Number 4. The 93-year-old bridge. The U.S. city of Little Rock, Arkansas has deemed a 93-year-old bridge structurally deficient due to its age. So naturally, the city council ordered its demolition. But when explosives were placed on it and, it was going to blow up, the officials were taken by surprise. This archaic structure refused to go down. Turns out it's not so structurally deficient after all. This Broadway bridge was nearly 848 meters long. The demolition team placed explosives along the length of the bridge, but as the smoke and the dust cleared, the expected rubble and debris weren't seen. Instead, the curious onlookers and demolition team saw the bridge's steel arch and deck stayed strong. And survived the test of this huge explosion. The bridge's destruction was meant to take about 30 seconds, but the demolition crew spent another 5 hours on it. They eventually pulled the structure down using cables that they lashed onto the frame and additional explosives. The nearly century-old bridge obviously didn't want to go down without a fight. Marlboro House Condominium. The 12-story Marlboro House Condominium in Miami Beach was set to be demolished. The building was located at 5775 Collins Avenue and was approved for redevelopment by Miami Beach Associates LLC. As a part of this plan in late 2017, Miami Beach approved the developer's plan to demolish the building and construct an 18-story, 90-unit condo. The traffic in the neighboring streets was stopped in anticipation of the impending explosion, but the demolition work didn't go as planned. A person got injured during the detonation after the explosives were laid. The injured person was one of the redevelopment company's project managers. He was immediately taken by paramedics to the hospital for treatment. When the reason for this failure was researched, it was found that the building had a demolition permit, but not an implosion permit. Number 2. The Leaning Tower of Dallas. The building was built in 1971, and it was the Southland Corporation office tower. It stood a proud 11 stories tall and was about 47.9 meters in height. A demolition company planned to use 300 pounds of dynamite to demolish the building. This was to make room for a $2.5 billion mixed-use project. But the plans went to waste. The entire building collapsed except the core. which housed the elevator shaft and the stairwell. Core collapsed slightly at its base before settling with a slight lean. Its height and location in downtown Dallas made it very visible to people living in the area and to commuters. People quickly noticed the awkward structure and started taking photos of it and posting them on social media. Inspired by Italy's Leaning Tower of Pisa, many people posted photos of themselves pretending to hold up the tilted tower. Many memes were made poking fun at the tower's refusal to fall despite the demolition attempts. ALCOA Power Station. The case of the ALCOA Power Station in Anglesea stumped demolition experts. This 6-story structure was attempted, but it failed to be demolished. Experts from the UK were subcontracted to rig and detonate the explosives, but just a single, towering industrial stack was left intact. And it was deliberately spared demolition. Anglesea residents were concerned about the possibility of asbestos being released from the former power station. However, ALCOA insisted the demolition would not put the safety of workers or the community at risk. A second attempt was made to demolish the structure, which thankfully was successful. The science behind explosions is super simple. If you remove the support structure of the building at a certain point, the section of the building above that point will fall on the part of the building below that point, and if this upper section is heavy enough, it will collide with the lower part with sufficient force to cause significant damage. The explosives are just the trigger for the demolition. In short, it's gravity that brings the whole building down. To safely demolish a building, the blasters have to map out each and every element of the implosion ahead of time. The first step is to examine the architectural blueprints of the building, if they can be located. This is to determine how the building is put together. Next, the blaster crew tours the building multiple times. Once they've gathered all the raw data that they're gonna need, the demolition team plans and figures out a plan of attack. And then, drawing from past experiences with similar buildings, they decide on what explosives to use and where to position them in the building and how to time their detonations. The main challenge, though, in bringing a building down is controlling how it falls. Tipping a building is similar to cutting and felling a tree. To topple the building to the north, the blasters detonate explosives on the north side of the building first, in the same way that you would chop a tree from the north side if that's the way that you wanted it to fall. Blasters might also secure steel cables to support columns in the building so that they're pulled a certain way when they crumble. Virtually every building in the world is unique, and for any given building, there's a number of ways that blasting crews might decide to take it down. Sometimes things don't go as planned either, but it's very important to follow safety measures to ensure that nobody gets hurt. Since demolition work is one of the most hazardous operations, there should be experts involved in analyzing the conditions. A risk assessment must be carried out regularly by a competent and experienced team. Staff connected with a demolition operation should be trained in safe systems of work, the importance and usage of PPE, the personal protective equipment, and also demolition plans, the sequence of operation, and the disposal and handling of hazardous materials. So, what did you guys think of today's video? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and share it. Also, subscribe to this channel. We'll be back soon with a new video, and until then, later.